Nope, just me. Alright, just let me know when I can count down and I can get right into it. Yeah. Okay. Alright, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and go. Alrighty. So this is Nights in the Dreams for the Sega Saturn. One of the flagship titles for the console. They even designed an entire controller just for the game. So basically, in this game, you enter these dream worlds. You play as these two kids named Elliot and Clarice. We'll start out with Clarice's levels just because it's convenient. And then we'll switch into nights. So basically, you lose these orbs that you got to recollect. And okay, so for each stage, you need to get 20 orbs on each lap. And that's just so that you can kill these, you can defeat these cages to get those special orbs back, and then we go back to the start of the stage and repeat. And basically, each time you do that, you get a different route for each lap. And so our main form of movement is dashing. I just learned today that it's called the drill attack, and we're using that to just go fast. And so here we're going to get a hidden icon here that'll refill the gauge, and it'll allow us to, just continue going fast. And you'll see me go through these large rings. There are two different kinds. Orange refill your gauge by 1 second, and the yellow refills it by 2 seconds. And what I mean by that is just like how long the gauge will last. And we want to go through those as much as we can to keep our meter going. And then we just went through one that had multicolors, and basically all that does is gives us this trailing yellow ribbon that allows us to perform tricks for score attack. But since we're just trying to go fast, we don't need to worry about a score. I mean, we do to a certain extent because you need a minimum of a C rank on each stage in order to access the final stage. But luckily, just by us going fast, it's enough to get the ranking we need. So now that we finished the final cage, we go back to the start and we'll be entering the boss. Each stage has a unique boss and has a different way of being defeated. For this boss, really easy. There's a trick you can do to kill in one hit, and we manipulate this boss by a little bit by holding right as we go into it, and for whatever reason it prevents this boss from doing a dive. And what we're going to do is we're going to go the direction it's going and do a large paraloop and kill it in one hit. Normally what they expect you to do is to go towards it and grab onto its chin and repeatedly damaging it that way. It takes about 20 hits to kill, which is about 30 seconds or so normally. But here we can just do it quick, a good time. Because that's actually an intended strat, but not something that they expect you to do. And then after each stage, you go back to the title screen, and then we'll go back into the next stage. So every time you start a new stage, you start as one of the children, and for the most part, it doesn't really mean anything, because you basically just go into the gazebo and change into knights. But in the stage after this, we'll be using that to do the first lap much more quickly on foot than we would normally be able to by flying. But for this stage, we don't get any way to refill our meter to go fast, so we just have to manage that carefully by going through as many of the rings as possible. So for this one, we're gonna skip right over the cage, since hitting it without having enough chips to kill it is, not a good thing. So then we're gonna get all 20 here, kill it, and we're just gonna go back left since it's faster than going right. And now for this next lap, there's exactly 20 orbs before the cage, and we're gonna just grab all those. There's 8 right here, and then there's some hidden ones right here. We have to do a para loop that'll reveal them, and that'll give us more, and then there's another 5 here, and then we can just go straight to the cage after that. So we're gonna go a little bit out of our way to get these rings to just keep our meter high. And now for this one, we're gonna go left instead of right. Like they expect you to go right, they have arrows pointing that way, but there's exactly going left is faster. Because basically we can do it in a single lap instead of having to go all the way around a second time. So then we get these orbs right here, go back, and get the cage, get the orb from the cage, and then go back left again. And now we can just go all the way back to the start and start the final lap. And so this lap will introduce an overhead section, which only, I'm trying to think, 2 stages have that. But this is the only time we'll see it in the run, because in the other stage we skip it. Let's see. Missing orbs. Alrighty. And there's actually a lot of little Easter eggs in this game. Okay, so we ran a little low on dash just because of me not managing it properly, but that's fine. We're fine now. Because for this next boss, we don't need the meter at all. But there's a lot of little Easter eggs in this game. If you noticed, there was a car going underneath me during that overhead section. You can actually park it into a garage and get some bonus points. Let's see. Alright, so for this boss, there's a specific way to do it. I got a slow pattern, which is too bad. Darn. So basically, if you hit him just right, you can kill him in as little as 3 hits, which is very fast, but I got unlucky there and hit him slightly too early. But when you hit him, you deal damage to him. If you hit him while he's still stunned, you do double damage to him, so you can get it as low as 3 hits. So now we're going to go into the next stage, Soft Museum, which is the last stage for Claris. And we'll be doing the first lap on foot, because it's a lot faster than doing it the other way. And you'll see why in a moment, because if you do it the normal way, you have to do some weird stuff to get orbs, and it's just all over the place. But doing it on foot, we can just like get the orbs and bam, and be done. So basically when you're on foot, the fastest way to move around is to jump, but you can also chain your jumps after you get knocked down there. And build momentum. You can't really show it on this stage because of all the hills and all the turns that we have to do, but on the next stage they'll be able to really showcase it. Go. Alrighty. So basically, if you hold down the jump button after you jump, like near when you're landing, you'll do a high jump, and then if you time your jump after that, you have to. It's not frame perfect because the window's pretty tight. You can do a super jump and gain a lot of momentum and sometimes height. All right, so for that one, basically you don't want to touch the walls because they'll bounce you and you'll like just have your momentum wrecked. Here's another icon to refill our meter. So now we can go fast. Here, we're going to go back left, collect some orbs, and then there's a cage of orbs here that we're going to get. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to skip the auto-scroller. So normally there's this like auto-scroller that happens if we just go a little bit farther to the right. But here we can do a large para loop. Let's see if I can do this right. But it's kind of finicky to do. It can be troublesome sometimes. Basically, there's like a certain way to do it. There we go. And we're getting orbs that are off the screen that we normally aren't able to get. And so that was a little bit of a slow way of doing it. Normally I can do it more quickly, but sometimes you can just get trolled on getting bad angles. So now we're going to just get some more orbs. There's some hidden orbs down here that we're going to collect. And then there's just 2 more on the outside we're going to get, and that'll be the last one. And then we'll go on to the probably the most difficult boss for people. At least on a casual playthrough, it's the most difficult boss. On a speedrun, it's not terrible, but I'm a little low on the boost meter, so I'm a little worried about that, but we'll be fine. Because I don't really need it after the first hit. So basically, this boss, his name is Jackal. He throws cards at you as long as he has his cape. And he's also invincible when he has his cape. Okay, that's not good. Okay, there we go. Come on. What the heck? So you can't damage him while he has his cape. And he won't get away from his cape. There we go. So that's not really normal. Basically, he'll just continue going back towards his cape. That's not good. And so when you hit him when he has his cape, he doesn't take any damage, and you just have to get him away from his cape and keep hitting him away. There we go. So that took a little bit longer than usual, but that's fine. It's not a friendly boss. And like I said, casually, that's the most difficult boss, because if you get hit by a card, you get stunned for a couple seconds and you lose 5 seconds off your timer. And if you run out of time, you get a game over and have to redo the entire stage. And we don't want to do that in a speed run, of course. So now we finish all of Claris's levels, and now we're going to move on to Elliot. So while there's an extra stage there, it's shared between both characters. So we only have to do that final stage once, and we're just going to do it after we finish Elliot's because it triggers the credits. So now we're doing this we're doing the first lap on foot again, but we're going to be making better use of the chaining of the jumps so that we can just gain a lot of speed getting to where we want to go. So we jump, 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 and jump. And then we're going to hit this switch here, and that'll reveal some orbs. Get a bunch more orbs up here. If I can jump. There we go. And then we can just go right to the cage. And see, we can just jump all the way back there real quickly. From what I've been told, the jump has an infinite speed, so you can go like as fast as the game can physically go. But generally, the levels aren't large enough for you to build that kind of momentum. So we're going to grab those boost here, because there is a boost icon in the stage, but we're not going to grab it because it's out of the way. So we're going to go down here. There's 20 orbs we can get. And then we're going to go up, and then around. And that's kind of like a tight position you have to get into just to get through it and get all the orbs. And then we're going to go back. If you go right, there's an overhead section and a boost icon you can get, but it's a lot slower to go that way. So we're going to do another large parry loop here, and we want to get 10 orbs. There we go. And here we're skipping another auto-scroller. There's an underwater auto-scroller that we can do if we continue going right, but auto-scrollers are slow, and we want to go and do the boss. So this boss, it's an easy boss, but it can be very trolly. Basically, it's like a giant bouncing ball, and we just have to get to the end and pop it. And it gets progressively more difficult to get through the walls as the positions change and it gets smaller. Okay, there we go. And sometimes you can be a little finicky on getting through the pathways as well. There we go. And not a bad fight. And now we're going to be moving on to probably one of my favorite stages in the game. And it's basically like a snow level. And it's the only auto-scroller in the game. It also has the only auto-scroller in the game we do in the run. And so for this is the last one that we'll be doing the first lap on foot, but for this one we only do about half of it on foot, I would say. Because basically if you do it normally, it takes about 2 run-throughs of the lap in order to get enough orbs. So there's some orbs hidden in this tree. There's 10 here, and then we're going to get more over here. We only technically need 12, but we're going to get 13 just because it just works out that way. Then we're going to jump back in here, collect some orbs over here. Get that, and bam. And we make quick work of that lap. And then for the next lap, there's exactly 20 orbs before the cage. So we're going to take advantage of that, get them all. Because we don't really have much of a choice, because the other orbs outside are kind of out of the way, and we want to be optimal. Ooh, missed it. Sometimes you can just move out of the way just enough to miss something. Okay. Now for the third lap, we're going to get the boost icon, because we want to go fast for the rest of the stage. So we only need 6 orbs here. And then we go down here, there's a cage for another 8. And then more here to get the rest. There's the boost icon, but we're going to come back for that. And grab that. And now we're good for the rest of the stage. Because next we're doing an auto-scroller, and it's the only one we're doing because it just can't be avoided. But it's a neat auto-scroller. Basically, you go on a little bobsled ride. And we can get all the orbs we need on one pass through if we're good. Wonderful, we got enough orbs. So technically I can get away with as little as 15, because there's another 5 I can get before this. From one doing a super para loop and then the 2 right before. So now we're going to get into this boss, Claus. He's an interesting boss. He only takes 1 hit to kill, but he's constantly getting away from you. So basically we have to prevent him from going anywhere. And we can dash into any mice he has lit, and we can do para loops in the ones that are unlit. And basically we're just doing that to speed up the fight itself. There we go. And just like that, we can take care of them. So that was a little bit slow. An optimal would be like a 101 or a 102 with time remaining, but that's perfectly fine. So basically in each stage, you gain score, and then you get a multiplier at the end, depending on how quickly you defeat the boss. So it has some built-in speedrun stuff, even for score attacks. So now we're going to the most difficult level casually, but it's probably one of my favorite as the speedrun because it just has such a very high skill ceiling. And we'll get into that. Basically, this stage alone has 3 auto-scrollers, and we can skip them all, but like the first auto-scroller is about 30 seconds. And the second auto-scroller, the second and third are basically tied. So we're doing a cactus jump here, which will let us walk during this cutscene, which just basically prevents the falling animation from occurring, allows us to get to the gazebo just slightly quicker. So we did reveal the boost icon there, but we're not going to grab it until the next lap around, just so that we can maximize our boost usage. And just like that, we go through it, and now we're pretty much set for the rest of the level. We will be grabbing 1 more boost gauge right at the end. So to skip this auto-scroller, there's exactly 20 orbs before the auto-scroller appears. So we're just going to skip it by getting just enough orbs. So right there, that grate is the auto-scroller. We're just going to be very careful to avoid that, get the orb that we need, and go down and back to the start. And now we're going to try to adjust our height a little bit because there's a point we want to get through to avoid getting bonking and stuff, and we got to hit the switch to break out of a gravity field. Grab orbs, and then now we're going to be magnetized here, and everything's just kind of stick to us. And right here, you're gonna get tallied on how much stuff you brought through, and no matter how much or how little you brought through, it's always the same time, so it doesn't really matter about knocking your stuff off. And now we're gonna get into the final lap, which is the most difficult part of the stage. We're gonna be going up a tower with an unusual angle. So basically, we're gonna have this angle, and we're gonna be going up this tower, and then afterwards, we're gonna go back down this tower to skip an auto-scroller. There we go. So get the other dash meter there, grab the rest of the orbs, and then we're gonna kill this, and then we're gonna go right back down. And we're gonna keep this upward angle because we can't do anything about that. So as you go down, you gain momentum up to an infinite point. So it's fat. So as long as you're going downwards, you're always gonna be building up speed. And we use that to our advantage just to get down a little bit faster. But sometimes it can be hard to keep track of where you're going. And getting down that tower can be tricky because it's almost like a maze. So now we're going to the last regular boss of the game. This one's name is Riala, and it's basically your counterpart. And in order to defeat it, we have to do paraloops around him before he does the same to us. And sometimes this fight can be a little wonky, but for the most part it's pretty straightforward. Like sometimes he'll just randomly stop boosting and mess with my timing. But it's not his fault, it's mine, because I'm just not used to that. There we go. And all we need is 3 hits on him. And so now we're going to go into the final stage, Twin Seed, which is a bit different than the rest of the stages. There's still 4 laps, but instead of individual 120-second timers, we get a total of 180 seconds to complete the stage. And if it's your first time playing through that, it can be kind of daunting because of how it's designed. So basically, on the first 2 laps, you only get 20 orbs total to finish those laps. So it can be sometimes difficult to find all the orbs if you don't know where to look. So we're going to start by jumping off here, and it'll fling us away. Basically, Knights is trapped. We're technically supposed to jump towards him, but it's a little bit faster to jump away. And then we're going to jump off here, and for whatever reason, that gives us the ability to fly like Knights. So we're still playing... we're flying like Knights, but the difference is that we can't do paraloops. So our track range for orbs is slightly increased to compensate for that, but we can't paraloop to grab orbs. So for this section, since we can't find any dash icons, we're just gonna go through as many yellow and orange rings as possible to keep our meter up. So I'm gonna grab some extra dash here. What engine? This is the Knights engine. Basically, the engine was made specifically for this game. It was used in one other game called Burning Rangers, which was also released on the Sega Saturn a couple years later. But the engine was made specifically for this game. Alright, so I'm going to do a turn here. Basically, if you press both the triggers at the same time and do a swoop motion on the analog stick, you can turn around. You can do a quick turn, and we did that to skip a lengthy section. And then we're going to do it once more here for the same reason. And conveniently, there's 20 orbs here. Ooh. And it hits Spike Green, which just basically stuns you for a moment and throws 5 seconds off. Ooh, okay, so I'm a little bit short of orbs here. Luckily, there's orbs in there. Alright, now we got all these things. Now we're gonna release Knights and fight the final boss. And so basically the big bad guy of the game, his name is Wiseman. He's basically taking over the dream world with his nightmares, and we gotta put a stop to him. So this fight is basically he has 4 different phases he can do. Generally he'll go through all 4 of them. He only takes 4 hits to kill. But sometimes he'll bug out and repeat an earlier phase, but that doesn't happen very often. So basically, now we have 2 knights here, because both kids are involved, but we only control one of them, the other one basically just follows you. Alrighty, that's good. So the first phase, he throws fireballs, and then we can hit him only when both knights are attached, and you can tell when that happens when you see like a little rainbow color. The next phase is like a bunch of asteroids, and just gotta dodge them. Wait for the other knights to attach. Sometimes he can be a little slow on that. And now he's gonna throw some giant snowballs at us. Let's see, and then we go up here. There we go. And generally the patterns are consistent, but sometimes he'll throw in a different pattern here or there. So now for the final hit, basically he's gonna use tornadoes on us, and we have to dash through that to avoid getting caught. Basically, if you don't dash through that little middle piece, you'll get flung back. Alright, time is coming up soon. I'll call it. Basically, when the screen fades to white, I'll let you know. Alright, and time. And this is Nights into Dreams. Thank you so much. Hey, not bad. 2604 is pretty good. And now here we're going to watch Elliot dunk. And then I guess next we have Bomberman Hero, which will be awesome, so stick around for that.